Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Finance Your Higher Education Dream. Through what promises to be an enlightening discussion, we hope you will learn all you need to know about education loans for higher studies. Studying abroad is an expensive proposition, but a study has shown that more than 50% of students look for loans as well as scholarships to meet the cost of their studies. This event will help students in getting the answers to their budget and financial planning needs. To bring you some good guidance in this direction, we have partnered with EduFund and GradRight as our event panelists. Both of them provide financial assistance to study abroad aspirants. So let me introduce our panelists for today. We have Mr. Arindam Sengupta with us, who is the co-founder and CIO of EduFund. Arindam is a graduate of Indiana University Bloomington and Princeton University in the US and has over 16 years of work experience in the finance sector, both in India and on the Wall Street in the US. I would also like to introduce Ms. Shivani Mani with us, who heads student servicing at GradRight. Apart from other educational qualifications, Ms. Shivani has completed her Executive MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and has over 13 years of experience in the finance sector. So the way we have structured this event is that instead of having a formal presentation, we've curated a careful list of questions which our students typically tend to ask us. So what I'll do is I'll ask these questions on behalf of our student community and request both Mr. Arindam and Ms. Shivani to provide some guidance on the same.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, Vikram.
Thank you for joining.
Everyone. Thank you, Vikram.
Thank you. So would you like to just tell us a little bit more about yourselves, and then probably we can jump into the Q&A?
I mean, it's up to you guys. You guys tell me. How do you want to do it?
Yeah, okay. So we'll get started then right away.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we probably have curated questions which lie in three categories, and one of these is to do with the loans process itself, which students who primarily want to study abroad would like to avail of. Another category of questions is regarding the gray areas, which sometimes students come up with a lot of doubts and there are no clear-cut answers. Maybe that's something that both of you could share your valued perspectives on. And then towards the end, if you have some extra time, we'd probably also like to ask you a few questions regarding scholarships and what your experience is, how students can go about the same thing. Okay, so one question which comes up quite often from students is that does the mix of family savings and loan vary by whether the student is going for a master's or undergraduate program abroad? Students often ask us what is the optimal amount of loan they should take, keeping in mind the affordability, servicing the loan, eligibility, and many such factors. So yeah, this is one question that comes to us often.
Shivani, you want to go first?
Sure. So in this case, the optimality of how much loan versus how much savings you have to incorporate from your end would typically depend on two things. First is what is the quantum of savings available with you, right? If there is not enough quantum available with you, then definitely you will have to cover your expenses through a loan, or maybe if you're academically sorted, you have a great profile, then a bit of scholarship will also come, right? But it's important to find out first, exactly how much quantum of savings can you put in, and then start thinking about this is the amount of loan I would need. And that exactly would be the optimal amount of loan. About servicing the loan, the larger the burden of a loan, the more difficult it becomes, yes. But then if you're not able to cover the loan, saving through the savings part, then there is no option left but to cover your expenses through an education loan. So that's largely how you should see. But please remember, do not constrain yourself just by the overall budget, because if you're going to a college which is worthy, then you should also look at the return on investment. So do not worry about, this is way beyond my budget. Do not worry about that. Never compromise on the kind of school you're going to. If you're going to a worthy school, the return on investment actually improves, and ROI is what you should see, rather than ruling out your options. Okay, this is a very expensive option, I may not be able to utilize this option, right? So concentrate on ROI, and basis that you can decide whether you should attempt going to the school or not.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. So how I look at this question is it depends on whether you're going for undergrad or masters, right? So if you go anywhere for undergrad abroad, it almost is a 75 lakh to 1 crore ticket size, if not more. Now that's a large ticket item, what I would call it. It's almost like buying a house, right? Somewhere in India other than Bombay and few other places. So on that large amount, I would not take loan on more than 50% because that's a pretty significant amount of money. So your loan for undergrad and these huge amount has to be your plan B. It's a leverage, and leverage is always plan B. Leverage is never plan A. Now come to masters. By the time somebody is in their masters, more often than not, you have your parents' savings. You also have some of your own savings. And masters, unless you're going for an MPA or an MBA at Harvard or Yale, one of these schools, they are much more lenient with scholarship. So masters tends to be a slightly cheaper affair. So if you're going for masters, yes, you can push up your leverage a little bit more, simply because the overall size is a little less. However, whether it's undergrad or masters, remember, loan has to be used wisely, and any leverage is always your plan B. Leverage cannot be plan A. That's not wise financial planning.
That's truly insightful. Thank you, both of you. That's great. Another question that comes up very often, it's in fact 70-75% of students that I have interacted with want to know the circumstances or in what situation they can get student loan sanction without collateral, and they often without margin money also. Are there 100% education loans available?
So I'll take that up, Vikram.
Thank you.
So when we look at undergraduation loans for undergraduation, there is mostly no loans available without a collateral or margin money, at least from the Indian set of lenders, right? So undergraduation, assume, because the ticket size, like Arindam said, varies between say 70 lakhs to 1 CR almost. So largely you will be putting up a collateral of equal or more amount to procure that loan. But there are a couple of NBFCs which would still, so when I say NBFCs, non-banking financial corporations in India, which would still take a call over an unsecured loan for UG if the co-signer, if your co-signer, financial co-signer who will co-sign the loan application along with you, has that income potential. Because for undergraduation, mostly you will be serving either direct EMI from the very first month of taking the loan, or at least the simple interest component to service the loan right from the first month. And that is where your co-signer's income, it's largely going to be your parent or somebody in the immediate family who's earning and filing income tax returns, has valid income proofs. These folks are going to be servicing this direct EMI or the simple interest component during the study tenure. So income becomes very important where it is an unsecured loan. But parallelly, in that case, you must make sure that your academics are completely sorted. You have your test scores in place. You have a great admit in hand. Even better if you have some scholarship backing you. So, your own individual profile richness plus your co-signers, financial stability and strength will come into play when there is no collateral available. And hence, the amount of unsecured loan that will be offered to you will definitely be much lower than what you can get otherwise, where a collateral is covering the loan amount. So this is for UG. Now come for masters. Masters loans, it's a 2-year period. And say if you're going to a country like US, then a non-MBA course, a STEM course, non-MBA, you will easily get a loan up to 55 lakhs in an unsecured manner, right? And that is enough amount of money, considering you will have some TARA opportunities there, some part-time opportunities there. So this 40-50 lakhs is good amount of money, and you can get it in an unsecured manner for US market, masters in US. And it's this margin money component or this collateral question comes into picture largely with public sector banks, where there is no opportunity to get a loan more than 7.5 lakhs, without a collateral. So this is largely, the difference. So unsecured loans, if you're looking without collateral, without any margin money, look at, options other than public sector banks. That is where your profile, in terms of, your individual academic profile plus your co-signers' financial strength will come into play, and a loan is possible without a collateral and without margin money.
Understood. Yeah, Arindam, anything you'd like to share?
Sure. So I'll share an experience of my co-founder. She's not here. So one thing is, yes, I mean, sometimes it's just not possible to have a collateral or margin, right? And there are many smart and talented young people who really need this push to get into college, right? Unfortunately, that is a reality. But for a large part of people, at least for undergrad, right? Remember, undergrad is a defined event. Whether you're smart or dumb, you are going somewhere for undergrad. Masters is optional, right? So I would request almost all parents who are listening to this or around, start saving, right? I mean, somebody will always give you a loan, right? But to service a loan is not easy. My co-founder, coming back to the story that I was going to share, my co-founder in EduFund is Ila Dubey. She's an American. She grew up in US. She went to NYU for her undergrad. And she ended up getting a merit scholarship. And after the merit scholarship, I think she took a loan of about $125,000 at a 4.5% interest. Because she's American, she can get that from the federal government, which is a very, I think, a very attractive interest rate, right? And I wish Ila was here. She'd tell you guys that she had to literally work non-stop for the next 8 years to pay off that loan, right? So one is, can you get a loan? Yes, there are many people who will give you a check if you're smart. How to service a loan? That's the next problem. Some of these loan amounts, I mean, you have to be really careful what you're biting down on. Especially today when a lot of people are going towards entrepreneurship. You can't be taking a loan and say, "The boss, मैं खुद का काम कर रहा हूँ." There's no cash flow when you start a startup, right?
Right. That's very insightful, actually. Thank you, Shivani and Anandan. That's really insightful. Just another question for someone, which often again comes up, is that, let us say, under both conditions which Shivani defined and against the backdrop which you've given, However, if a student is good, they have the academic potential, and yet financing is an issue, which might have been the case maybe uh, even with your co-founder to some extent. Uh, so keeping that in mind and keeping the popular academic destinations in mind, which are English speaking, where students from India typically tend to go, uh, which countries are most loan worthy, or from where should a student get an offer letter if they are going to rely on getting the largest possible loan in the easiest possible manner?
So in this case, US tops the chart, right? Because US popularly caters to one of the few of the best STEM programs across the world, followed by Canada, because again the expense to study in Canada, I mean leaving out the MBA programs again, is largely between 20 to 30 lakhs, manageable. There is often enough part-time opportunity in Canada. The academic week is not too heavy. And then followed by Ireland and Germany, I would say right now very popular options. And then I would say Australia and UK, right? There is this set of top schools. Say if you pick up in the B schools, if you pick up the Financial Times top 100 ranking schools, and likewise top 300 QS ranking schools, if you're going to any of these schools, then please know that there will always be at least one loan available for you in the market for sure, because you have the academic metal, and that is enough for at least one loan option available for you, at least one, right? So when students come to us, we work with so many students every day. The first parameter that we like to see is how are the academic elements of the student, and if they are good, it is sort of a relaxation for us. So this is how US followed by Canada, and then maybe Ireland and Germany at the moment, then UK and Australia.
So I agree with Shivani. I think whether somebody takes a loan or not, right? One of the biggest things that for most of us when we study abroad is that we have this idea that once I finish my degree, I would like to work in that country for a few years, whether you've taken a loan or not. Now, with this mindset, it is imperative that you go for your undergrad or masters to large economies where there is excess job and these economies can sustain themselves. So US obviously is the one that tops everything. Canada also because there's a lot of opportunities. And Europe would be my last choice simply because I mean, if you're a European Union guy, it's hard to find a job in Europe. So if you're not European Union, I mean, it's very hard to get a job. So you will study, and who is going to give you a job? So stick to large economies, because only when they have enough jobs, they can give something to you.
Right. That makes sense. So, since we are touching upon the US and referencing the US quite often in our discussions so far, uh, probably at a very practical note, I would also like to explore a gray area when it comes to the US F1 student visa, because at certain times, during certain situations, which may or may not coincide with the political reality that is prevailing in the US at that point in time, but there have been a few cases where students have been told that they are being denied the F1 student visa because of the loan component. And obviously, that means maybe the parents don't have IT returns which are very strong. So, any anecdotal information or any reflections from your side to put students at ease, because we have a lot of students with us, and we would like to encourage them to apply to the US, irrespective of their family financial situation. So, any insights you can share on this conundrum?
Sure. So I have studied twice in the US, so that's basically means I have secured the F1 visa twice. So both the times I followed the simple advice that was given to me by others was that the single biggest reason for anyone to deny your student visa is the inability to prove that you have enough reason to come back. Now, so how do you prove that you have good reasons to come back to India? There's two ways. Either you have strong financial background, which is your savings, or you may have a business or whatever. And the second is strong family ties, right? So if you just look like somebody who just doesn't have a good story, right? I mean, and it's very hard to convince the visa guy that why are you going to come back to India? It's just very hard to convince. So you may be a great student academically, but your story may not add up to you having enough reasons to come back. Or the opposite, where you may be an average student academically, like how I was, but I had a decent story to prove that I could come back to India. So make sure you work on the story that you have enough reason to come back.
Yeah, because that is the that is your intent to apply for
Yes,
the F1.
it's an intent, and what we don't
You
realize
already
is in the F1, we are literally signing off in a place where we are saying, okay, I have declared that I won't stay back. My intent is to come back. So you're giving it's very serious. You are actually signing off on a legal document. So you need to really have that intent strong.
right. So, Shivani, probably what I'd like to do is request you to reflect upon in your experiences, more at a macro level or an aggregate level, because we are not only at our end, we are not only seeing US as an aspiration for students who can get into the top 100 universities where the academic pedigree of the student and the intent and the academic motivations and probably even the financial pedigree of the parents is stronger. But we are also seeing a lot of interest in universities which are not ranked the top 100, where students go because not only it's not that bad students go to the non-top 100 universities, but often they tend to be very much more affordable as well. They could be 3 times cheaper than any of the top 100 universities in some situations. So, at an aggregate level, have you seen the trend change towards more visa issuances with students who are applying with loans when it comes to, say, universities outside top 100 in the US?
So, Vikram, in that aspect, I'll say, let's just look at the first part of the question. Uh, Loans happen to be visa friendly. That is what our experience says. And I have seen students, with great academic profiles, but still making a choice between college A versus college B because college B happens to be a better option in terms of ROI. So when I say ROI, the fee would comparatively be lower and the return, the remuneration that he can potentially earn is almost similar to college A, which has a higher component of fee, right? So the student has taken such a decision where ultimately it is the return on investment. So how much you are putting in and what are you getting, that ratio is what they look at. So forget the ranking, the general ranking. What I would like students to rather concentrate on is, what is the curriculum giving you? Are you satisfied with the curriculum in that particular college, right? Are there factors which affect you more than the brand, the reputation, the general QS ranking, right? Students could be looking for how is the faculty. Students could be looking for what is the research expense of that university. Student could be looking for how is the culture in that particular state in the US, right? or a student could be looking for how well will I accommodate to the culture of that country, right? There are about 20 such odd metrics which we like to see that the student considers while choosing which destination, which college, which subject he wants to pick up. And if the student has enough logic placed around that, I think that student will never fail in the visa interview. And I think the VOs are actually looking for students who have a logic in place. So, Arindam spoke about your story. Your story should fall in place. And that story is nothing but how hard have you worked towards this particular admit, towards your passion to go study abroad, pursue a degree abroad. And that is what should remain consistent, because only then in your visa interview will you come out confident on any questions that the VO has. So I have had students where, the parents were on very low income parameter, the academics were average, but the student had a very clear picture of what his next 5 years are going to be, what is next, how his career is going to plan out. And he was so confident in his interview that in 2 questions, the visa interview ended and he was given, the permit to go ahead. So it's largely going to boil down to how well prepared are you, how true, how focused are you in your mission to go study abroad and pursue a career there, right? So intent to come back is also going to come out only if you know how your focus is going to be maintained through and throughout. So, do not just go abroad, plan to go abroad just for the sake of going abroad, but actually have some meaning in it. Whatever program you want to pursue, whichever school you want to pursue, place logic in all your steps that you take towards it. I think that is what is going to matter.
Understood. So it's a 360-degree intent. Very strong, genuine intent will ensure that the visa happens, irrespective of where you want to study.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So probably we'll change direction a little bit here and get more into the specifics of the loan process. And, I'll ask each of you to share a little bit more about the actual loans that each of your organization is facilitating, how they compare to some of the typical options available here, and what students can expect to, how the experience is, what students can expect to go through.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Shivani, you want to go first?
Yeah. So, GradRight is a tech platform, basically. We are not lenders ourselves. We are a marketplace. And hence, we are an aggregator. So, we have all the lenders possible who lend education loans typically partnered with us. And it's a mix of, the loan types. So, you are looking at an international lender, we are partnered with them. You are looking at a public sector bank, we are partnered with them. You're looking at a private bank, we are partnered with them. You're looking at a non-banking financial company, we are partnered with them. But the whole idea is that in usual space, you will go to one particular lender, 2 lenders, 3 lenders at the max, walk into their office, check what are the terms and maybe conclude one, right? But in today's time, especially, GradRight is a COVID baby, I would say, when there is probably not this opportunity to visit banks, and how many you want to visit, I'm not very sure. People are not confident walking out of their house. It is very important that if you're looking to save some money, save some good amount of money by making the right choice on what kind of a loan you want to be on, then evaluate all your options, right? And anything which can help you evaluate all your options that quickly is what will save time for you, because you've already spent so much time researching about colleges, researching about programs, right? And this is again a huge research that you can carry out on what kind of loans you want to be on. But definitely, if you are able to compare all your options, what is suitable to your profile and what is suitable to the lender who's going to give you loan, that match has to happen correctly. Only then will you be confident on how much can you save and whether you can get a loan or not. So that is what we facilitate. So basis each student's profile, we customize the option on which lender the student will be able to fit in with, and where the student's expectations will be met by the particular lender. So this is what we have to offer. So it's not superficially, the interest rate is what most students come asking for, that I want a low interest rate, right? But today, when we have lockdown in so many states, and for a country like Canada, where we have a 15th May deadline to apply for study permits, I will definitely not guide a student to go to a bank which is going to take a turnaround time of 1 month to process the loan. Rather, I would guide the student to somebody who's going to give a loan decision as well as a disbursement by 15th, right? So then ROI becomes completely immaterial. It is the turnaround time which becomes important. So this is how one should prioritize and work around their loans.
That's great, Shivani. GradRight is doing something wonderful in terms of increasing the access for the students. Since you've told us quite a bit about how you work, I would just, and since a large part of our audience is pretty much ready to go as far as the loan process is concerned, I would request you to share a little bit about the mechanics of applying for a GradRight loan. Does it start with downloading a mobile app from Play Store, or how do students go about it? And secondly, the matching process, is that a AI-enabled thing that happens at the back end, or is it at some end? At some point, is there a human intervention that makes it a very customized offering for the student?
So it's no mobile app. It's a browser link that students have to log on to. I will be sharing the link, So it's just a link where you quickly have to register yourself with a loan profile. And when you make a loan profile, it's slightly a serious affair. So ideally, through a desktop or a laptop, a larger screen is what you use to make this loan profile. And this loan profile will largely comprise of your academic undergraduation details, your program details, the country that you're going to and the college that you're going to, and then your co-signer, your family's income details, financial details. So these three screens or details will make your loan profile. Once you have your loan profile ready, we initiate a loan bidding process. When I say bidding, these 10 lenders that we are partnered with, they get access to your profile sans your private details, only the metrics on academic, financial, and program. And they look at those metrics, they throw out their offers through AI, and that's how transparently you are able to see within minimum 4 hours to 24 hours working hours, you'll be able to see all the possible eligible options for you. So there is hardly no time that it takes to check whether you are eligible for a loan. If yes, then what are the options available for you? Post that, you also get allocated a financial advisor from the city you are. So there will be a dedicated financial advisor from GradRight Sen who will help you evaluate these options. And on your dashboard, on your FundRight dashboard, you'll also have access to the names, emails, and phone numbers of each of the relationship managers in these banks. So in case you want to speak to them directly, you can reach out to them. Rather, they will themselves call you if they are interested in your profile. And in between, a financial advisor from GradRight will help you evaluate all these options and clear all your queries until you fly out of the country. So we're going to be through and throughout the journey. And in fact, even once you are there pursuing your master's or your degree abroad, we like to have you as mentors for the students, incoming students for next and next season, right? So this journey is never ending for us, but yeah, this is primarily the process that we follow.
So if I can add a couple of points here, Vikram. So hearing Shivani out, I mean, what the ecosystem is now providing is something fantastic, right? So and people like GradRight, they're at the forefront of it, right? So when I even 10 years ago when I went for my master's, we never had this luxury, right? And one of the things that EduFund is trying to do further to this. So in the first part, remember that we were talking about when we first started this conversation is how much loan to take and what's the best way to take it. So remember, if you have a 50 lakh rupee bill, and let's say you get a loan of 35 lakhs, and then there are people like EduFund, GradRight, everybody who is trying to help a student with that 35 lakhs. We are all aggregators and have the same model. But now come to the next piece, which is the 15 lakh piece, which is your own equity, your own savings. There are two challenges that you see today. Number one, most people that we work with in our client base, we work with counselors very closely, and we start this journey almost 1-2 years before, because you should start getting ready 1 or 2 years before. This is a significant investment, money and time wise. So we make sure that we invest this 15 lakhs for you in the most efficient way. What do I mean by this? Almost everybody on this call is headed somewhere abroad to study, right? If you know 2 years before that you want to go abroad, you just don't know the country or the university, the first thing you should do is start saving money in US dollars. And it is allowed by RBI, it is official, it is legal, and every Indian can invest abroad. So what we have done on our app, we have created a college discovery platform where you first figure out how much it costs to go to X country and study Y degree. Then you know exactly how much money you've saved and how much loan you want to make. Now take the savings part and use our app, or hopefully our app, and start investing in dollar terms. And let's do the math. Shivani raised a very good point. Everybody starts with saying, "Mujhe sabse sasta loan chahiye," right? And that's the first point. I did the same thing when I applied for a loan 10 years ago. I fought with the RM for 50 basis points. But that definitely is not controlled by the RM or the bank. Most of these decisions are linked to the repo, which is linked to RBI. So an RM may be sympathetic to you, but he doesn't control the rate of interest. So let's give those guys a break. The second, so how do we reduce the loan, the rate of interest? Very easy. 2 years before, you start with your 15 lakh, use the same example, and invest in dollar terms, and you get about 15% return on the S&P ETF. It is liquid, you get money in 2 days. And this 5% arbitrage is huge. 5% on a crore or a 50 lakh. That's a big number. Just 2 years before, if you know कि आप 2 साल बाद में बाहर पढ़ने जाओगे, work on your loan, but don't forget to work on your saving. Move your rupee savings to dollar. Same, mutual fund. Do dollar mutual fund, and that 5 to 7% delta is huge on 50 lakhs and 1 crore. That brings down your cost of capital right away.
Right. So there's a lot of budgeting and planning and advanced planning that's going into your product, which is just great to know.
You have to plan in advance. Simply because the cost of education in studying abroad is equivalent to buying a house in any city in India. So you don't just walk down and buy a house. I mean, right? You plan for it. Same way, you have to plan.
Yeah, in fact, I just wanted to add to what Vikram was saying. Often what happens is students start thinking about, I have to go to this country and this college, and somewhere, how to budget it out remains as in the back seat. It's a question people don't want to face, right? But it is the reality that unless you face this question, you will probably end up making bad decisions. So the journey to pursue your education abroad, I would say a good timeline is to start at least a year in advance. So if you're going in, say, fall of 2022, then this is exactly the time you would want to start looking at, which are the colleges I want to apply. And likewise, the journey of financing should start, as early as possible, because that is what will give you enough time to find out what is it that you can put from your own end. What kind of a loan can you get in? How can you obtain the best scholarships? Because even scholarships, the best of scholarships also have a timeline similar to this. They come out at least 7 to 8 months prior, right? And applications deadlines end very quickly. So planning in advance, whether for which college you have to apply, whether for financing or whether for scholarships, all three have to be done in advance. That is the key to manage such a huge expense.
Great. So definitely for students who are starting the journey now, it's the right time to probably start with their financial assessment and financial planning, and then look into the test preparation and admissions and essays and everything moving forward. So what you've done here is really appreciable, that you've sort of productized it and given a very clear path to the applicant to map their financial journey, which is great, because till now people have just been mapping their test preparation and admissions journey against a timeline. So this is an additional dimension that you have added for students over here.
Just to add something here. I mean, 2019 is the year when me and my partner Hila, we thought a lot about whether we should quit our jobs and do EduFund, right? It was a big decision. And one of the things that we did was we did a lot of survey across India. We met some 5,000 parents across 8 cities. And one thing we realized is every Indian parent knows what is the cutoff for Harvard, what is the cutoff for IIM. They have it just memorized, all these cutoff numbers. But you ask them, how much do these colleges cost? They have no idea. And that's the first step to financial planning, whether you do loan, savings, whatever. Know the problem, know that amount. So the first thing starts by knowing the monster. So you can say, okay, it costs 1 crore, and you can say, okay, I know it will be 1 crore, I don't want to do anything about it. That's also a plan, but know that number.
Right. That's very useful advice, because at the end of the day, education is a financial decision, and as Shivani said right at the start, ROI. I mean, if you're thinking ROI, then plan for ROI right from the start.
Yeah, and have realistic expectation. That's a big part of ROI. Just
Correct.
be real to yourself.
So that's very insightful. Probably if we can just come back to the very practical aspects of the loan process for people who are looking to apply right away over the next month or so. One question we are getting is that since undergraduate studies is typically of 4 years duration, does the repayment of the student loan begin after graduation? Is it in the 5th year from the year of sanction, or when exactly? Is there some grace period to help you find a job at an aggregate level for each of the institutions that both your firms are representing? How does it work best?
Shivani, please.
Yeah.
Use.
So for undergraduation or for masters, whether you get this moratorium period, which is the holiday period where you don't have to pay anything during your course. It typically depends on what kind of a loan are you on, what kind of a lender are you associated with, right? Now, understand for UG, this option is limited, right? Because the expense is huge and the duration of the course is huge. So as long as you are on a collateral-based loan, a secured loan from a public sector bank, a nationalized bank, then you do get this moratorium period, which is the holiday period. You don't pay anything during the course of study. And when do you start paying? It is generally this grace period that you guys want to know is ranges between 6 months to 1 year. So 6 months to 12 months is the grace period where you will be finding a job for yourself and then start paying the EMIs. The minimum limit is 6 months, can be extended up to 12 months by putting up a request with the lender. With public sector banks, it's generally 1 year. With the private options, there is no moratorium period. There is no holiday period. For undergraduation loans, you will be starting to pay the simple interest at least, or the EMI itself from the very first month of taking the loan. So that is for UG. Now for masters, there are again different kinds of options. You get a complete moratorium. That is, you don't have to pay anything during the course of tenure, plus 6 months to 1 year of you finding a job, right? So second option is you pay, but a part of the interest, part of the simple interest, right, during this period. And the third option is where you pay the complete simple interest during this period, right? In all these three cases, your EMI still starts after 6 months to 12 months of you finishing the course. This is how it works for masters. But in masters, please understand that during your course tenure plus this 6 months to 12 months, interest is still developing. The only option that is changing is how you pay, whether you pay at that point of time or not, right? So a public sector bank enables you, don't pay anything, let this add up to your loan amount, right? Likewise, private options allow you to pay a part of this simple interest every month, and it can range from anywhere between 2,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees. Whereas if you're required to pay the entire simple interest, then expect for a 40 lakh loan, it'll be around 30 to 35,000 rupees of simple interest every month that you'll have to bear from the very first month, right? So this is how it works. Grace period is between 6 months to 12 months.
So further adding to what Shivani said, how I look at this question and how we have tried to structure EduFund is whether it's a loan and how much moratorium you get, or again, how cheap is the loan, it all boils down to one point: how efficiently you are using your capital. That is the question that we have to ask ourselves. If you have X rupees, and on X rupees you have taken Y rupees as loan, and you have X amount of years to repay it, the question here is how efficiently can you use the money? And remember, the 4 years that you are in college or 2 years that you are in college studying, whether it's a UG or a graduate program, undergrad or grad program, don't lose that time. Remember, you still have some savings. Use those savings. Use the financial markets that you have today. Use a dollar product. Maybe this is not the right place for it, but that is the value that dollar brings in versus a rupee saving. Rupee depreciates for all of you. Rupee has depreciated 5% every year for the last 12 years. That's huge. So when you have a loan, hedge it. Hedge that loan and make life easier for yourself by investing जो भी हो आपके पास 2 लाख 4 लाख 10 लाख whatever it is in dollar. Hedge yourself. That's the first thing they will teach you in MBA for all those who want to go for MBA. Efficient use of capital. So before each of you become a CFO after MBA, use it for yourself.
So again, on practical matters, let's say students who are here today planning to start their studies in September need to apply for a loan immediately. How will the paperwork be done if the parent moves out of the country? Maybe the parent is in the army or in a critical service. How will the paperwork be done if they start the loan application, give you the basic documents required, then the parents are abroad? The child may be here because they still might have to take their school leaving exams, assuming there is no cancellation. So any assistance or any insight, if at all, you can provide?
So Vikram, on this front, so long as the parent is not a citizen in that country abroad or an overseas citizen of India, uh, things can be managed. Practically, how will it be managed? All your documents, anyhow, are being accepted online, right? So there are lenders who are working because times are like that. You provide your documents online, you email them, you upload them, right? Now, any the signing of the loan agreement, which is the technical part, that has to happen physically, right? Once you're towards the fag end of taking the disbursement. So that is managed through a FedEx courier or something like that, right? But there is time to rearrange that. So not a worry. And in case the student is abroad and parents are here, in that case, again, the documents are sent over email. Along with that, there is a power of attorney that the student gets done in that country and in the embassy of that country and sends it here to execute the loan on the student's behalf, right? So either ways, document movement for till your approval of the loan is going to happen online. There are no worries at all, right? But only the signing part of the loan agreement towards the disbursement time, right? Which will be largely, I think, for US, if you're starting your course in August, you'll be taking the loan disbursement. Consumption of the loan will happen in July, right? Or maybe in the first week of August. Or if your course is starting in September, then in August, right? So at that time, the loan execution will happen. It's formal signatures, in-person signatures on that loan agreement, and that can be also managed through a FedEx arrangement, which the bank will coordinate. So not to worry on that part. Just that parent should not be a citizen in that country or an OCI, because then the technicalities of the loan change.
All through courier, and power of attorney is the additional document that has to be put in place
Yes.
to facilitate for Indian citizens who move abroad temporarily.
Yes, yes.
Got it. Great. Thank you. More questions on top-up loans. Any insight you can provide on any of your lenders who can accommodate top-up requests?
For top up, it's going to be largely dependent on what is the financial capacity at that point of time, how your credit history is at that point of time. Is there enough buffer financially to take that call? But largely, the top up amount will be very, very less. It will be around 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs on an average, and that request will have to be directly placed through the customer care of that particular lender, right? In this case, the private lenders will be a better call because they are more adjusting towards this service, whereas a nationalized option, a national bank option, will not work out easily, right? So top ups are rare and limited to a certain amount, dependent on your co-signer's financial capacity at that point of time, and how you've been paying whatever little you're paying during the course of study. How timely are you paying that? So these are the things that have to be looked at for top up.
Understood.
Just a point here I would like to make. For a lot of financial institutions providing loans, they almost see top up as a new loan. So for them, in their books and their mind, it is almost like giving another loan, which is a new loan to the same individual. So obviously, you need a very good reason that why do you need a top up loan, and you need, for a top up, you need very good financial background, or I mean, your numbers have to look good. You can't just say, "Hey boss, I need another 10 lakhs." That won't work.
Right. So, Arindam, given the overall experience that you have, not only of dispensing loans to qualified applicants, but also the broader approach with which you have conceived this program, are there any situations in which you have seen that dramatic increase or decrease in interest rates actually affects the EMI once the student enters the payback period? Because these are loans which are taken 4-5 years in advance. So if you're locked in with a good lender, can your EMI potentially increase or even decrease, which could be to the benefit of the applicant?
So almost all of these loans, right? These are all on floating rates, right? So I mean, they literally track the rate cycle. So right now in India, we are at historic low rates, right? I mean, if you just drive down, you will see home road loans are the cheapest. I mean, you have this big hoardings everywhere, and we are today living in a world of cheap and free money. So obviously, this won't be forever. At some point, your rate cycle will start climbing up. What does that mean for an average consumer? That your loans will become slightly more expensive simply because it's a pass-through effect. RBI increases the rate, banks increase the rate, and you have to pay more. That's how it works. But it's a small amount, and again, it comes down to if you've taken, if you're prudent, if you have got a job, if you did proper planning, it should not bother to you. I mean, at the end of 4 years, if you have a job now, it should not bother to you कि your EMI increased by 9,000 rupees. It should be okay. It will only be a problem if you are now 4 years of undergrad and you're without a job.
Right, right, makes sense.
See,
And
that is where, just to add, that is where people like you, like counselors, they become so important part. I think counselors are the most important part of this ecosystem because you start working with a student 2, 3, maybe sometimes even 4 years before they are actually going mostly for undergrad, right? I mean, masters is a very small runway. So in 4 years, I mean, you guys can shape this story very well, right? You got to tell the kids, look, this is the problem with the loan. This is how loan helps you. This is what you can do. So you guys are a very essential part of the ecosystem.
right. So just coming back to one of the topics we raised earlier about payback period and that sort of thing. What happens in the scenario that a student goes for a bachelor's, probably does not get a job, enrolls immediately for a master's? Top up we touched upon, top up would possibly be a second loan. In any case, my question is not about top up. My question is that is there any possibility for the payment period to be extended, whether or not the next education is financed by the same lender?
Shivani, all yours, please go.
Unfortunately, no, that's not possible because on UG, you're already sitting on a very, very expensive loan, right? A huge amount of loan. The lender would want to see the payments flowing in. So, if you're already on an education loan for your undergraduation, which is say, even if it is 50, 60 lakhs, there is no extension more than, the 6 months to 1 year that I mentioned of. That you will be able to get from the lender. The lender would expect the payments to start flowing in.
The second point I would like to add here is more than whether a bank will lend to you or not, this is a personal finance nightmare. Remember, you've taken a loan, you've done 1 degree. For whatever reason, you're not getting a job now. Don't do the same thing again. Get a job first thing before you take more loan. Deleverage yourself.
Right, that's prudent financial planning. Great. So we are actually at the end of an hour. If both of you are comfortable for another 5 minutes or so, maybe I could take some live questions from the audience and request your response to that.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Uh, Germany is coming up because US, Canada, it's come up quite a lot in our discussion. Germany again has two types of education. One is study in German language, which is typically at subsidized costs, though the living costs need to be paid for. Any banks in India that uh, lend for living costs? in your portfolio?
Yes, Germany, if you're going to a public university where the tuition fee is hardly going to be very, it's going to be negligible. You will only require money for the living expense, which is your blocked account money, which is about 10 lakhs or so. So yeah, lenders are able to fund that. There is no issue, absolutely. So that is possible. And because it's just about 10 lakhs, it's easier to go ahead, with the private set of lenders. Again, I would recommend. So it's available, yes.
And across destinations for students, let's say a student gets 100% scholarship to go to, say, Babson College or any top university in the US for a 1 or 2 year master's or MBA, but the living costs in Massachusetts or any big urban place are quite substantial, especially for an MBA or a business school student. So would banks in India easily put up 30, 40 lakhs of living expenses for students who are going to attend such expensive programs in the US?
Sure. So more than whether it's living expense or tuition expense, as long as, let's take US's case, right? Most of these expenses are always captured in what we call the I-20, which is the official form a university is sending you, right? So once it is there, it's an official cost. So it becomes much more easier to work with banks and financial institutions. So capture it officially. That's the first thing. Once it is captured on a piece of paper by the university, it's not a problem. Secondly, if you are going, let's take the example you said, Babson, right? These are still category 1 universities. So nobody really questions category 1 universities.
Understood. So a question that we have here is related to the GRE score as a loan eligibility factor. Any insight you can provide about that?
So, my take over here will be, while we see a lot of schools have waived GRE at the moment, and a lot of good schools are not giving that much weightage to GRE. If your statement of purpose or if your letters of recommendation or your profile is very rich, they're not giving that weightage to GRE. But the harsh reality is, yes, lenders still consider GRE as a factor to, it sort of forms as a benchmark for them to just see these are the students which we would want to consistently take a call on, because somewhere that GRE reflects of a student's aptitude for the lenders, right? But again, if you are going to a public sector bank, all that they will be interested in is what kind of a collateral are you providing, what is the value of that collateral, how much can your loan be covered through that collateral, and whether it is valid or not, right? So the private set of lenders will want to look at your GRE. The public set of lenders will want to look at your collateral, and the international lenders would probably see a mix of, which program you're going for, what is the school that you're going to, what is your overall profile, right? So it's going to be a mix of that. But Indian set of lenders, yes, they still do put weightage to GRE. They have not come out of that GRE net yet.
Understood. So since we are talking about collaterals, the general understanding is that collateral means your parents' property. What else could be collateral which can easily be shown by borrowers to quickly get loans?
FD is one that I can think of,
Okay.
but usually it is always a property, because property is so lumpy, right? Remember, you need about, most borrowers will give you about 70 to 80% loan to value of the collateral. So most people will have a 1 crore property versus a 1 crore FD. So that's why, while FD is also a good option and accepted collateral, most people in the ecosystem just have real estate, which is most commonly used.
Right.
And the other thing is, most Indian families always have one real estate which they thought jaldi big jayega, but has not sold. So you're stuck with that. This is the best you get.
That's true. Very well said, given the state of the housing market and everything over the last few years.
It's gone from a 3-year investment to a 20-year investment.
Right. So this is some alternative use for that
Yeah,
property.
exactly.
So, preferred collateral is, of course, in that order, a house property, then followed by a commercial property. Agricultural land cannot be considered as a valid collateral. And then fixed deposits are very good as collaterals if you're able to afford that amount of fixed deposits, and is the quickest form of collateral. So if you have a fixed deposit to put and take a loan against it, I expect that your loan can be done in a day or two, with national banks in 6 days. So that short is the TAT. But generally, I mean, students often say, if I have that kind of money, why would I even take a loan?
Right.
So,
Right. So on this topic, is there a ratio that if you're taking a loan of 60 lakhs, your FDs or property needs to be evaluated worth at least 90 lakhs? Is there any such thing in play at the moment?
It's usually 70 to 80% loan to value. Sorry,
Okay.
Shivani.
yeah. So again, it will depend on the type of lender you are going to be associated with. There are all sorts of permutations and combinations available in the market today. If you're sticking with national banks, then there are banks who like to see property should be at least 110 to 115% of the loan amount. There are banks which also want 125 to 150%, right? The private set of lenders, they will give you a combination of secured plus unsecured. So if you have, say, 40 lakhs that you're getting as an unsecured loan and you want 80 lakhs, for the rest 40, you can put up a collateral, right? So you can make these permutations and combinations. Right now, there are enough and many options. And then, of course, there are international options which can also cover almost 80 to 90% of your total loan amount, seeking no cosigner, seeking no collateral. So very good options available at the moment.
Got it. So this has been great, Shivani and Arindam. We are out of time now, but I really appreciate the
Thank you.
360-degree perspective you've given us, right from 2 years to the loan application to alternative investments in dollars that can actually reduce your loan burden, to the final process for which I think many of our students will be contacting you right now. So this has been very useful. Thank you for reflecting upon all the technicalities, and we'll make sure that our students contact you as soon as possible to get the ball rolling. And so that's pretty much it from my side. Have a great evening, and thank you for enlightening us.